Okay, ready? Redwall, chapter 3. So, sorry, I don't know what that noise is. I don't know if you can hear it. Okay, chapter 3. An air of apprehension lay across the camp in the meadow. Cheese Thief was dead, pierced by an immense arrow and dressed in Clooney's best battle armor. He lay amid the wreckage of the leader's tent. Not one of the horde dared go near the gruesome scene, lest they be found in a position of blame upon Clooney's return. Constance peered agitatedly over the parapet. Something was not quite right. She felt it in her nostrils. The badger's worst suspicions were confirmed by the sight of Clooney crossing the road and heading back into the meadow. Constance watched him leap across the ditch. There could be no doubt about it. That rat was definitely Clooney the Scourge. She had killed the wrong rat. Clooney had left his picked band back in the woodlands. They knew what they had to do. It would take a bit of time, but it was a sound, workable plan. Striding swiftly over the meadow, some sixth sense told Clooney that all was not right. His one eye scoured the area. There was the horde gathered together at the far end. But what had happened to his tent? Clooney could vaguely discern a huddled figure tangled in the wreckage. Speculation was useless. He speeded up his pace. Fangburn met him halfway. Clooney held up a claw, silencing him. He would get to the bottom of things without stuttering excuses. He kicked the tent folds aside, revealing Cheese Thief's stricken face. The great arrow shaft protruded from the ruined armor, his war gear. Clooney glanced backwards and forwards from the abbey to the body. He took in at a quick rate all that had happened. The big badger was peering over the wall. It was her doing. Clooney's brain raced ahead. On the far edge of the meadow, the horde was looking decidedly uneasy. A mistake had been made. The arrow was meant for him. The warlord's fertile mind suddenly came up with an idea of how to turn the situation to his own advantage. Fangburn was, to say the least, surprised. Clooney clapped him heartily on the back and led him across to where the rest of the horde waited apprehensively. Clooney laughed aloud to put them at their ease. He winked his eye roguishly. Well, I see my little scheme worked out just fine. We got the dirty traitor, didn't we, Fangburn, my old mate? Fangburn was completely baffled, but he knew better than to disagree. What? Oh, of course we did, Chief. Clooney nodded over at where the body lay. Do you see that? Well, let it be a warning to you all. Ha! I knew what was going on with Cheese Thief. Didn't anyone see him at the battering ram last night, acting all high and mighty? There was a general murmur of agreement. Most of the rats had been pressed into volunteering as ram carriers by the ambitious cheese thief. Aye, we saw him, Chief, chucking his weight about, shouting orders. He kept me on that ram for 2 hours. Yes, you should have thought he was the commander of the horde. Exactly, Clooney shouted. I'd had my eye on Cheese Thief for quite a while. He was doing a fair piece of ordering about without my permission. Why, I bet he even ordered some of you lads around while I was gone. He started shoving me around, Chief, volunteered Dark Claw indignantly. It was do this, fetch that, jump to it. I'm using the Chief's tent. I think Cheese Thief was getting too big for his boots, Chief. Clooney threw a claw around the speaker's shoulder. Thank you, Dark Claw. You're an intelligent captain. You could see as well as I did that Cheese Thief was planning to take control of my trusted horde. Why else would he start using my tent and dressing up in my battle armor? The soldiers nodded sagely to each other. Clooney was right. There was no fondness in the ranks for the dead, power-hungry bully. Clooney continued, You see, I knew the badger and her friends were planning to kill me, so I thought I'd kill two birds with one stone. Fool them and save myself the trouble of having to execute Cheese Thief. In fact, I let the Redwall crowd do the dirty work for me. I didn't want any of my loyal soldiers put to any trouble. I gave the traitor enough rope and let our enemies hang him. Clooney slapped his thigh and burst out laughing. The horde joined him, falling about with merriment at their chief's black joke. What a cunning idea! There was no doubt about it. The scourge didn't miss a single trick. Clooney waved cheerfully to the distant figure of Constance on the wall. My thanks to you, Badger, he shouted. You did a fine job. Constance could not hear a thing from the distance of the ramparts, which was just as well in the circumstances. Clooney was almost jovial as he turned to the horde. Well, my good warriors, has anything else happened while I was away? Kilkenny performed one of his most elaborate salutes. The tunnel is going very well, Your Honor. Good, good, said Clooney. Anything else to report? Mangefur and Scumnose piped up jointly. We was out searching for dock leaves, Chief, way out across those fields over there. Clooney halted them. He nodded to Scumnose. You tell me. Well, we was ridden around by some hedges, Chief, said Scumnose, and we found a whole tribe of dormice fast asleep. So we pounced on them and tied them up in a bunch. Nice big fat ones they are, Chief. Clooney interrupted. Dormice, eh? You haven't killed them yet, I hope. Scumnose shook his head vigorously. Oh, no, Chief. We're keeping them nice and fresh in the ditch there. Do you want to see them? I think there's about 20 all told. Good. You did well. I want them kept alive, muttered Clooney as he walked across the ditch and peered down at the captives. The dormice were huddled miserably together, their necks looped cruelly together on a rope. They whimpered fearfully at the sinister sight of Clooney the Scourge. Which one of you is the leader? He snarled. A bedraggled youngish mouse held up a timid paw. I am, sir. My name is Plumpin. Please let us go free. We have done no harm to any living creature. Violence is against our nature. Silence, Clooney snapped, or I'll teach you what violence means. An anguished moan arose from the dormice lying in the ditch. Clooney cracked his tail. Cut out that cringing, he said contemptuously. You are my prisoners to do with as I like. Oh, don't worry. I won't let them kill you yet. I've got other more useful things in mind. You, Plumpin, or whatever your name is, tell your tribe that they won't be harmed as long as you do what I say. For the present, you are to stay down there under guard, Scumnose. Mangefur? Yes, Chief? You two are responsible for these prisoners, said Clooney. See that no creature goes near them. Stand guard night and day. If just one of those dormice goes missing, you'll both end up on a roasting spit. Is that clear? After Cheese Thief's carcass had been disposed of, Clooney sat beneath an awning that had been improvised from the damaged tent. He watched the armorer diligently repairing his prized war gear and fumed inwardly. His equipment had been battered, and he had lost a valuable captain. The Redwall contingent had stolen a march upon him, and the battering ram had failed miserably. Once again, the thinking was left to him. The horde was more concerned with licking wounds and feeding their stomachs. Strategy was not their responsibility. However, on reflection, the balance was beginning to swing in his favor again. He now had 3 possible keys to the Abbey. One was the tunnel. The rats in Mossflower Wood were attending to his second scheme. And the third, Clooney glanced over to the ditch. The capture of the dormice would prove an even more devious avenue to the conquest of Redwall, provided he played his cards right. Early evening saw the attack upon the abbey get under way once more. Just Squirrel and Ambrose Spike had joined the ranks of archers. They popped up and down, selecting random targets. I don't like it, Jess remarked. Ambrose grunted as he released a feathered shaft at the ditch. Don't like what, Jess? The squirrel put aside her bow and sat down under cover of the parapet. They seem to have slackened off somehow, and we haven't seen much of Clooney lately. It's not like the horde to behave in this way. Personally, I think there's something afoot that we don't know about. Winifred the otter was standing nearby. She slung a stone hard, nodding in satisfaction at the resultant scream, and joined the two friends. I'm inclined to agree with you, Jess. The Scourge has probably figured out a new move. This attack may only be a cover. By the way, is there any word from the Foremoll and his crew? Oh, they've still got their ears to the ground, Ambrose said gruffly. Foremoll says they've heard the odd echo. Nothing definite, though. Southwest corner's where he thinks they might surface eventually. Yes, I've heard that too, Jess agreed. We'll have to arrange a warm reception for those filthy vermin when they show up. Which baffles me, Winifred mused, is where young Matthias has got to. It's not like him to miss the chance of a battle. Abbot Mortimer was on his rounds with food. He had been eavesdropping on the conversation and could not help commenting. Do you know, I was just thinking about that same thing myself. But we must give Matthias the benefit of the doubt and trust in his judgment. I have a feeling that he could be the salvation of us all. One thing you may be rest assured of, wherever that young mouse is, he'll be concerned with the survival of Redwall in one way or another, I'm sure. Ah, well, Jess sighed as she picked up her bow and notched an arrow to it. We'd better make sure he has a home to come back to. On with the war, friends. The squirrel drew the bow full stretch and stood up. She paused a moment, peering along the yew shaft, then released the string with a vibrant twang. Below, on the edge of the meadow, a creature fell transfixed. One stoat less to carry out Clooney's commands. Okay, let's see now. How are we? Okay, let's do chapter 4. Matthias set up a solitary makeshift camp that night. After a frugal meal, he wrapped his habit tight around his body to ward off the chill breeze and settled down to sleep. Alone with his bitter thoughts about the ungrateful shrews, the young mouse finally dozed off. Sometime before dawn, he became aware of movement and sound nearby. Carefully, Matthias slitted one eyelid open. His feet were warm. He felt the extra weight of a blanket that had been draped over him while he was asleep. The guerrilla union of shrews in Mossflower had returned. Small campfires had been lighted and breakfast was being prepared. Matthias decided that it must be nearly daybreak. Turning on his side, he kept up the pretense of sleep. Ignoring the presence of the shrews, he drifted back into a warm slumber. It was fully daylight when he reawakened. The sun beat down through the trees, mixing its rays in the pale blue smoke of the cooking fires. Log-a-Log brought toasted wheat cake and a bowl of herb tea. Sitting up, Matthias accepted them non-committally. He ate and drank in silence while Log-a-Log folded the blanket and packed it away. The shrew stood beside him and gave a short, nervous cough. Matthias, I'm sorry about what happened yesterday. As you can see, we've decided by majority vote to come along with you. The young mouse continued to ignore him. Log-a-Log slumped down. Matthias, listen. We shrews of the Union try to run our lives along democratic lines. You must not think too harshly of us. The shrew who spoke out against accompanying you was only stating chapter and verse of the act. I was wrong to hit him. Gosam did right to uphold his arguments. Matthias rose and shouldered his bundle. Look, Log-a-Log, Don't talk to me about your silly rules, subsection 3, paragraph 4, and all that nonsense. You are either with me or against me. I haven't got valuable time to waste on a lot of shrew union rules and disputes. Log picked up his pack and smiled broadly at the young mouse. Matthias, my friend, we are with you to a shrew, tooth, claw, and nail. Lead on, bold warrior. Matthias laughed in open relief. Well, let's get started, friend, Log. We've got an adder to fight and a sword to win. Surrounded by a band of shrews which had started quarreling over the best route to the quarry, Matthias marched stolidly forward. They trekked through the trees, leaving Mossflower Wood far behind, across open ground, giving the farmhouse a carefully wide berth, breaching hawthorn hedges and spanning dried out ditches through several fields that lay fallow in the summer stillness. A halt was called at lunchtime on the banks of a slow, broad river. Matthias sat next to Grossem during the midday meal. It would be the last cooked food they would get. Stealth and secrecy would be the order of the day on the other side of the river. No fires, no noise. Matthias flicked a pebble onto the water. How are we supposed to cross this lot? He asked. Grossem spoke through a mouthful of bread. Log. How else? That's how he got his name, you know. His father and his father's father before him were all called Log. The whole family were all fairy shrews on this river. If you needed to cross the water, you stood on the bank and shouted, Log. Here, let's see if it still works. Glossum walked to the river's edge. Cupping her paws around her mouth, she called in a ululating voice, Log. The older shrew appeared out of a reed bed, balanced upon a large floating tree trunk, which he propelled skillfully with a long pole onto the side of the bank. Angrily, he sprang ashore, upbraiding Grossum. Puddinhead shrew, do you have to broadcast the fact we're here? Shouting out like a great foghorn. We'd better strike camp and get across now, before someone comes. I was only showing Matthias how to call for the fairy shrew, Grossum muttered surlily. Is that all? Said Log heatedly. Then why don't you show him how the snake tracks in the mud there? Or didn't you notice them? Asmodeus passed through here not 4 hours ago. He's probably gone hunting in Mossflower Wood. It's a mercy we didn't bump into him. He might come back this way before the day is through. Matthias stared in horrified fascination at the broad, slimy path that had been left in the mud by the snake. The shrews had all clambered hastily aboard the strange craft. Hurry along, Matthias, all hands on deck, Log hissed. Despite the danger of the enterprise, the young mouse actually enjoyed the ride across the river on the tree trunk. Several of the shrews dug lines out of their packs and fished successfully, amassing quite a tidy little catch before the ferry nosed onto the opposite bank with a gentle bump. The shrews disembarked and Matthias helped Log to conceal the ferry in some bulrushes. I was thinking, Matthias mused, do you suppose we could all hide somewhere? That way we might see Asmodeus return and track him to his lair. That's exactly what I had planned myself, the shrew replied. If we spread out along the bank and remain hidden, then we stand a good chance of spotting Poison Teeth. It's a good idea, but I can see a drawback. Supposing the adder catches the scent of shrews. There's so many of us. That's a distinct danger. Then again, Matthias argued, would it not be better if we made our way to the quarry and waited there? Asmodeus is bound to head for home. I wish it were that simple, my friend, Log replied. The land around the quarry offers no concealment. It's too flat and bare. Poison Teeth is full of ancient cunning, too. He may have a secret entrance outside the quarry itself. I think it's best we wait here. I'll spread the comrades out in a line. We'll all keep watch. Throughout the long afternoon, Matthias lay hidden at the base of a lilac bush. He was within calling distance of shrews secreted a short distance away, as they were of their neighbors further along. Fully a kilometer of the bank was covered in this fashion. Whoever spotted Asmodeus was to report, after letting 1 minute elapse, to Matthias, who was positioned roughly at the center of the line. Gosim and Logolog were stationed on either flank. The blazing sun hung over the watchers like a fiery disk. Matthias kept his sights on the river and the ground in front of him, not daring to move, whether to eat, drink, or scratch. He was forced to endure the unwelcome attention of inquisitive flies and insects that buzzed about and walked across him at their leisure. Often he would focus so hard that his imagination played tricks. A slight ripple upon the water or a vagrant breeze through the grass became Asmodeus. He would blink and reassure himself that it was only a product of his tensed mind. The young mouse lost track of time until he became aware of the sun starting to sink and a reddening sky heralding the twilight. Surely the snake must pass this way soon. As complete darkness descended, a shrew sneaked up through the grass and tapped Matthias's shoulder. "What's the matter? Has Matthias been sighted?" Matthias asked. The shrew pointed out along the flank that Gwosum headed. "I don't know, Mouse. You'd better come and see for yourself. I'll go and get Logolog." Matthias scrambled out from beneath the lilac. Something must have gone wrong. Throwing caution to the winds, he dashed along the river bank. Other shrews left their hiding places and followed him. Gwosum was seated upon the open ground, her eyes wide with fright, teeth chattering madly, her whole body trembling like a leaf. Logolong came racing up. Matthias shouted to him, "Gwosum's in a state of shock. Help me. Let's get her into the water." Grabbing Gwosum between them, they rushed her into the shallows and ducked her under the surface of the water. She came up spluttering but coherent. "Giant poison teeth, the snake. Asmodeus, he was here. I didn't spot him until it was too late. He's taken Mingo, gave him the magic eyes, then bit him and dragged him off. Poor Mingo. Ugh, it was horrible, horrible, I tell you, the rotten, filthy reptile." Gwosum flung herself down, sobbing into the grass. Log pulled her roughly to her feet. "Come on, don't lie there crying, shrew. The adder probably left a good wet trail for us to follow. Where did it happen?" Gwosum ran shakily some distance to the left. She pointed to the ground. "Right here. You can see the great slithering marks. Look!" The evidence was quite clear. The wet path in the dry grass gleamed in the dark. They followed the trail with Matthias and Logolog in the lead. It twisted and turned tortuously over the small hillocks, through hedges and across fields. Even when the wetness stopped, there was a musty odor of death clinging to the ground. At the top of a small rise, Matthias dropped into a crouch. Signaling everyone to do likewise, he pointed downward. "Look, Logolog, there!" Spread out beneath them was a vast, disused quarry. It was as if some giant hand had scooped a great hole in the landscape. The shape was roughly oval. The steep red sandstone sides were terraced halfway around into long, flat shelves. Piles of fallen stone were dotted about amidst the defunct workings. The scant vegetation lent the quarry an air of stark desolation. They lay on the edge of the pit, straining their eyes into the dark floor area below. Steadily, Log gave orders to the gorilla shrews to retire back across the field where they could rest up and eat a much-needed meal. Only he and Gwosum remained at the edge of the quarry with Matthias, who settled any further debate by saying, I'm going down there for a look around as soon as it's light. If you must go, then we will come with you, murmured Log Log. Matthias shook his head. No, I cannot allow it. It's far too dangerous. Grossem, who was fully recovered, spoke out courageously. You cannot stop us, Matthias. You are not a union member, therefore we are not under your command. The rules clearly state this, so the decision is out of your paws. We go. You and Log get some sleep. I'll take first sentry duty. The three friends slept in turns, relieving one another through the long watches of the night hours. Matthias was on duty when the first fingers of dawn probed the quarry. What a difference daylight made to the sinister nighttime appearance of the scene below. Everything looks better in the day, don't you think? The sandstone ranged through a spectrum of pale sunlight gold, banded through every shade of yellow, fawn, umber brown, down to the dusty red sandstone that must have been hewn out in distant ages to provide the masons with material to build Redwall Abbey. He roused his companions to view the awesome spectacle. To think that all this peaceful beauty should hide such cold evil, he breathed wonderingly. In silent Indian file, they began the descent. The going was not too hard. There were lots of handholds and steps, and the sandy rock was quite firm, not at all slippery. It took less than an hour for the three friends to climb down. They stood together in the flat quarry floor, gazing around. Supposing Poison Teeth decides to hunt today, whispered Grossum. I've a feeling he won't, Logolog replied. Asmodeus got a full day's hunting yesterday. With the unexpected bonus of poor old Mingo on his way home, he'll probably sleep through today and go out to hunt tonight. So that gives us all day to find out where he is, added Matthias. Shall we look together or split up? Stick together, said Grossum as she and Logolog drew their short rapiers. Matthias took out his dagger. They started searching the quarry for a possible hole or concealed entrance. The trio scoured the lower slopes, poking and probing. They inspected underneath stunted bushes, turned over chunks of rock, crawled beneath huge slabs, always watching keenly for the telltale single winding track of the adder. The silence was oppressive. There was neither birdsong nor the hum of insects inside the sunken area. Having crisscrossed the floor, they progressed to the middle terraces, but the results were equally disappointing. All morning they had searched the quarry without any success. At midday, Logolog called a halt. They sat on a flat, table-shaped rock halfway up and shared hardtack lunch, followed by a canteen of water. It was not a cheerful meal. They each sat with their own thoughts. Finally, Grossum stood up, dusting her fur off. She clapped her paws together in a brisk manner, urging her companions to resume the task. Right. Come along, you two. We've only got half a day left. Matthias and Logolog gathered up their packs and weapons as Grossum leaned on the side of a narrow slab and continued her summary. If we search around the top lip this afternoon, that only leaves a thee. The echo of the cry hung upon the still air. Grossum was gone. The narrow slab she had been leaning against swung loosely on a pivot. They had found the entrance to the lair of Asmodeus Poison Teeth. There you go. Next time, chapter 5. Until then.